And welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is emotion, energy in motion, and how we can manage this energy in a way that promotes our well-being rather than denying those emotions or suppressing them or judging them. We'll talk about how we can process them, move through them, allow them to feed us in our lives. So before we get started, let's take a couple minutes to get present. So let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding into your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale, exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light, lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells, all your molecules, your electrons, creating a brilliant beam of light and energy from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale, exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's press our palms together, vigorously rub your hands together to feel the friction, the temperature, the pressure, the motion, the tickling and tingling when you stop, and allow all those sensations to bring you present right here, right now, into this remarkable physical form that enables you to experience life. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good morning, Rosalind. So good to have you here with us this morning, and welcome to everyone else who's joining us. So we are talking today about emotion, and emotion gets a pretty bad rap in our culture. Typically, we have the old paradigm is that if you are emotional, you're weak. Never let them see you sweat. Never let them see you cry. Don't be weak. And it's emotion is often associated with females. Don't be a girl, right? Buck up. Don't be a girl. And that's it's pretty interesting to look at uh, the prejudices we have around emotion. You know, you have to stay cool, calm, and collected. Don't get angry. Don't get angry, or don't show them that you're angry, whoever they are. And the thing is that as a result of that kind of conditioning, so many of us have become very dissociated from our emotions, very unaware, because we have denied them, we have exiled them, we have denigrated them, judged ourselves for having emotion. And it goes on and on. And the thing is that emotion is energy. And we, coming into our more collective awareness, is the notion of emotional intelligence, emotional intelligence. And if we can adopt this perspective around our emotions having an intelligence as well as our bodies, that this is part of us as a greater whole. If we can recognize that when emotions arise, they're they are a communication. They're an opportunity to discover other aspects of what's going on with ourselves. And if we deny them, if we pretend they don't exist, if we suppress them, what happens is that the energy that is the emotion becomes compressed, condensed, concentrated. And the more suppressed it is, the more dense that energy becomes, and can often end up in physical manifestation. It's kind of like, if you don't pay attention to the message gets stronger and stronger until you do. And so if we can cultivate a respect for our emotions and allow ourselves to process them, we're going to be a whole lot healthier than if we don't, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. So how can we do that? How do we process emotion? Well, typically, if we are looking at our emotions, if we are present to them, we often make up stories to justify them. The question is, why am I feeling that way? Right. And with that question, we will find justification. And Rosalind, you're going exactly where I'm going. So Rosalind says emotion, taking away what the mind thinks about it, instead turning the focus on feeling the sensation in the body. Exactly, exactly. And that's what we do in the core connection work. That's part of the process, is to be present to the experience, the physical sensations of that feeling, and to be allowing oneself to experience those sensations. Where is it in the body? What does it feel like? It often feels like a block of some sort, or sometimes it feels like tar-like sludge, for example. I've heard that a lot. And so if we can just be present to that sludge, be present to the sensation, be present to the block, whatever it is, and observe it without judgment, without story, just allow it. And as you allow it, it pretty reliably will change, which is pretty awesome. Also, when we talk about the intelligence of emotion, like the communication that's happening with this emotion, we can look at what prompted it. Where did it come from? And if we look at what triggered the emotion, there's information for us there too. The temptation might be to justify and to, go into this loop that is like, that person disrespected me and that's unacceptable behavior, and to justify whatever the emotion is. But what the opportunity is to look at why such a passionate or impassioned response. Like, what's going on? Where did that come from? Most likely, it came from the past. Because we'll often see that we react to something very disproportionately. That's a really good clue to take a look and see what's going on another level, because there's more to the story than whatever this one incident was that triggered that kind of response. And so this is the intelligence. I say, I work under the premise that if it's coming up, it's coming up to heal. And it offers us the opportunity. We don't always take that opportunity, but we're being offered the opportunity when something comes up to address it and to heal it, to metabolize it. So when we block emotion, when we suppress it, what we're doing is we're not giving ourselves an opportunity to metabolize that energy. And that energy can get stuck. It truly can. I mean, it's interesting. Um, I imagine most of us have heard stories of people who, or maybe experienced it yourself, who in the midst of body work have incredible emotional releases, super powerful emotional releases, because this energy is stored in the body if we don't find a way to release it. And we're told, many of us anyway, we're told as kids, don't cry, don't be a crybaby, right? And lots of trauma is stored in our bodies, in our beings, all that energy. And so it really is important to be able to find ways, maybe not in the exact moment, because it's not always possible. We don't necessarily have the space or the time. It may not be appropriate. It may not be safe to express or process those emotions in the moment in which they arise. That would be ideal. But it's important that we give the respect to ourselves and our energy and the emotion and the incident, whatever that precipitated the emotion. It's important that we address these experiences. It's important that we find ways to metabolize these experiences. And when I say metabolize, what I mean is to integrate, to process, to assimilate. And what happens in that process is that the energetic congestion gets released. So it's interesting because I recognize that I said we don't want to make stories about the emotion to reinforce it and keep it rolling, unless it's a fun emotion, an uplifting emotion, maybe a joyful emotion. Maybe we can perpetuate that a bit. Certainly our tendency, I think, is to focus on the negative emotions, or the more difficult emotions, let's say. Let's not make them negative and positive emotions. They're just different experiences. And some experiences we prefer over others, although you would think that preference, like we would prefer joy over anger or depression or sadness. But we tend to cultivate anger, depression, and sadness, resentment, whatever, through the stories that we tell over and over and over and over and over and over again. So we're creating that with much more vigor than we create the joyful experiences. So, that might be an area of practice. Rosalind says EFT, so emotional freedom technique, tapping is a really powerful way to help. Thank you for that, Rosalind, to help metabolize those emotions. It's a technique where you tap on different meridians, a sequence of meridians to allow the energy to keep flowing more fluidly, let's say. So we do have, at least in this culture, we do have a pretty strong association of emotionality with weakness. And we're chided for emotional behavior and maybe criticized for being overly dramatic or overly sensitive. And I had such an interesting conversation with one of my male clients who was talking about how they did not have awareness. They couldn't make a distinction around what emotions they were feeling. In our sessions, oftentimes I'll say, and how does that feel? What are you feeling about that? What's the emotion? And they have a really hard time identifying it. And it's because our language, our culture doesn't traffic very well in consciously addressing emotion. And how fascinating is it that we are emotive beings? That is, like we have been conditioned to operate kind of as disembodied heads, right? Or to be in our heads, to be in our minds, to be honoring what we believe or what we've called rationality, and separate out the emotion from our reason. And the thing is, this whole notion of being reasoning creatures, of being rational creatures, is a myth. It's a myth because so many, I mean, we can look at it very clearly, see that we're not rational creatures. What kind of rationality, what allows for so many of the things that we've done? How rational is it to pollute our resources that our lives rely upon, like water and air and soil, for example, in the name of money? What is rational about that, for example? What is rational about war? It's it's not, it's craziness is what it is, really. Like what's the story? Why is this an accepted norm? Why is it an accepted norm that we can justify all kinds of bad behavior in the name of business? Where do these reasonings, these rational quote unquote, big air quotes, decisions come from. It's crazy, right? It's lying, cheating, stealing. What is rational about that? What's rational about raping and pillaging the earth and other people and other cultures? It's insanity, really. There's nothing rational about it. The only thing that makes us believe it's rational is that we sort of have a consensus reality that's how things are. It's insanity. It's insanity. And our emotions in response to these things have an intelligence to them saying, wait a second, there's something wrong with this picture, right? It's craziness that we have accepted as sensible or culture or standards. It's truly madness. Rosalind says, like speaking a different language, when you don't know the translation of a word, you use other words to try to describe what you're saying, using color or density, etc., to try to describe the sensation felt in the body. Yes, so exactly. I appreciate that, Rosalind. When we emotion, when we're experiencing it, is a rather it's a rather difficult thing to explain sensations if we don't use metaphor, for example. And when we can use metaphor and create a representation of something, then we have the ability to interact with that representation. And so it's so powerful to, for instance, embody the sensation of the emotion as as a thing that we can then observe and interact with. It makes it approachable. Our mind, again, our non-rational mind, our brilliant and non-rational mind loves symbols and loves metaphor. And that's why in these sessions that I do with folks through the core connection work, it's often experienced like a visualization journey, where all kinds of symbols show up from there other than conscious that speak to them on all different levels of being. And it's really quite remarkable to notice. Like, so here's the thing with emotion. Particularly if it's an uncomfortable emotion, just like if we have an uncomfortable physical sensation, what we typically want to do is make it go away. And the more we try to make it go away, oftentimes the more deeply entrenched it becomes. And so if we can just allow it to be as it is, without resistance, without story, to just be present to it, typically it shifts. And when we have a sensation, oftentimes we'll call it pain. And when we call it pain, that in itself can generate resistance to the experience versus having the experience, just allowing yourself to have the experience, whatever it is, that to feel the sensation. There's a fine line between pleasure and pain. And there can be, like, if you allow yourself to sink into a sensation that feels like pain, or that we want to call pain, the experience of it is different. It's, we get to be aware of how it's radiating through our bodies, how we want to resist it, how we want to brace against it rather than to open to it. And when we allow ourselves to open to it, what typically happens is that it dissipates. Sometimes it gets worse first. It might get like so intense that it's practically unbearable. And then it begins to dissipate. It's quite remarkable. And with emotions also, I see so many occasions where there is what we might call a sweet sadness. One of my clients alluded to a German word that is for kind of like happy sadness. I'm not familiar with it, but it's interesting that we can have what we might consider a painful emotion and also have a tenderness, a sweetness about that sadness, for example. So the message today really is to cultivate our emotional intelligence, to recognize that emotion is a communication that gives us an opportunity to deepen into awareness about ourselves and our wounds, and gives us an opportunity to heal them, and also an opportunity to see what lights us up in life, to become more connected. So that's it for today. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection. And I go live here each weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page and YouTube channel. And I invite you to check out the other awesome programming in Enlightened World Network and Enlightened World Living. And as always, I'm deeply grateful for the opportunity to share this time together. So until next time, so much love to you.